You know, life's too short to settle for less. You deserve the best. I like how you.
Welcome
You like
to the
a-
Petty in the Post web show. I'm your host, E3888, aka Edwin Garcia. We have here the pettiest Laker fan, also at the pettiest LA. Today we're talking about the Robert Sarver suspension from the NBA. Is it enough? I think it wasn't, but we're going to get into it. We're also going to talk about the launch of NBA 2K, everyone's favorite NBA sim. We're going to talk a little bit about the WNBA finals and Thor Ragnarok as well. How you doing, Petty?
Yes. I'm good. I'm good, man. I wasn't expecting us to have a whole lot to talk about today, and then Woj and Shams decided to drop a bomb on us with this. And this is something that has been like talked about for like the last year or two. This has been
Right.
an ongoing story, so it's, I definitely have some thoughts on this.
All right, so let's start with the tweet. I first saw it from Shams this morning. He said the NBA has suspended Suns owner Robert Sarver for 1 year from the Suns and Mercury organization based on league investigation. Sarver has also been fined $10 million and complete training program focused on respect and appropriate workplace conduct. And then, of course, Shams did what he always does. He added a few more tweets to give you a little bit more context about what the investigation pertained to. And then, of course, Woj dropped his tweets, and there was also an official statement from the Suns slash Mercury, because they're both in conjunction, part of what Sarver owns in the NBA and WNBA. So, like you mentioned, Petty, we've heard about this since early last year. There's an investigation, accusations of a toxic workplace. There was already conversations about him using the N word and wanting to use it more and things like that. So knowing what we know so far, I'm sure we're going to learn more as the days and weeks go on and hear from more people. What was your initial thought when you saw this sentence, if you will, being sent down?
I think my sentiment is shared by, the same as kind of yours. It's just not enough, right? If we use the Donald Sterling situation with the Clippers, famously, he got caught up doing the same thing from racist rants and just sexual assault. Everything that it's almost exactly this, except for like Clippers, right? And you saw what happened to him, how severe it was. I don't know if it's as bad. I don't know. I haven't looked at it one to one. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
let me know. I'm never gonna defend somebody using the N word. But I think the way that Donald Sterling was using it and the way that it's described here as Sarver using it is like two different things, like uh to me, the context that Donald Sterling was using it was in like the with the hard R, and for me, I'm getting
Right.
the vibe that Sarver's that guy who's like, how come I can't say it? Like
Right.
that rich billionaire who's like entitled, is like, how come I can't say it, and completely insensitive to like what the history of that is. So I don't know if I look at it the same way as far as like, oh, this guy is someone with like racist. Obviously, he has a lack of sensitivity, but I don't know if I look at it as the same way as like, no, this guy's probably looking at his team as a plantation. You know what I mean? Like I was with Donald Sterling. So that's kind of where I sit with the inward aspect of it. Now, as far as the sexual assault or like the report regarding the sexual assault, I think that's a lot more serious. In regards to like the why I think that the I guess the repercussions should be closer to what that of Donald Sterling is, because I think they said that there was a 43-page report with like with a review of over 8,000 documents. So this was a thorough review. This wasn't just like, oh, a couple people came forward.
Right.
And then I think he said that for me, I think in a workplace, like especially in the NBA, where they kind of pride themselves on being like forward thinking and supporting the WNBA. He owns a WNBA team, but he's engaging in like demeaning like female employees. Like to me, he should automatically just on that principle alone should have to sell at least at minimum the WNBA team. I wouldn't want to be if I was a woman. I wouldn't want to be working like getting paid by a guy who's you know telling pregnant employees that they're not able to do their job because they're becoming a mother. Like, and especially like in an office setting, it's not like they're playing basketball themselves and he's looking at
Right.
them like this. So like, imagine how he's looking at the players. So to me,
Right.
I'm sorry, I just can't. Yeah, I know that's a little long winded, but man, there's a lot here. What about you? I know
Yeah.
you averted to it a little bit that you didn't think it was enough. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it was enough. It's always tough to say it's enough to be taken out of something you own, but it definitely should be. It should have been more of a. I want to hear more from the NBA about why it isn't the same as Donald Sterling. It seems pretty dang close.
Yeah,
In different scenarios. I think the reality might be that if they decide anyone who's morally reprehensible cannot own a team, we're not going to have too many owners left.
yeah, yeah.
and
It's gonna.
and I think we have to remember it is kind of a bit of a boys' club, and it's not a democracy in that way. It's owned by a group of people, and they decide who comes in and who comes out. And they had to vote out Donald Sterling as well. So it's a little more complicated. They might feel like, well, if anytime this happens, one of us is out, we can't do, we got to take care of each other. Obviously, Donald Sterling
Yeah,
didn't have too many friends up there. And also, for people, sometimes they have to see it. I think if we had video or audio, that might really change a lot of people from like, oh, I heard it like this. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
I saw it or I heard how he said it. Different story. The fact that it's just like, I mean, who's going to read the 5,000 page? So you're just going to read the tweet. Oh, it sounds kind of bad, but I don't know, right? Compared to it with Sterling, I think what really made it, such a bomb was we had tapes. We had how he said it on tape, and that was a different story. Maybe if it was just, an article about something he said disparaging about Magic, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't have connected as much. Maybe it would have been the same thing. Oh, 30-day suspension, or he's suspended
yeah.
through the playoffs instead of like he lost his team, right? So, but I still don't think it's enough. Definitely, a year and 10 million. That sounds like a drop in the bucket. So, I'll be interested to see how the NBA, players respond. And I definitely feel for those Mercury players, like you said. And one thing maybe you don't know about is a few players left the team this year. Tina Charles basically just like bounced out, and the team there was a whole bunch of drama there. I'm not sure myself how much of it's involved with this, but there was a lot of
Yeah.
team drama. And Skylar Diggins Smith also said she needed to leave for mental health reasons, and she left right at like the final, I think, week of the season. She didn't come back for the playoffs or nothing. She just like, I'm done. And again, we don't know what her situation is, but you're hearing all these stories, and you're starting to kind of put two and two together, be like maybe that some of this stuff had to do with it. And then along with the Mercury players, they had to deal with this, right? Two players had to leave, for different reasons, and we don't know all the details. I'm sure they know more.
And important
And
players
Brittany
too.
Griner, and Brittany Griner is freaking detained in Russia right now. So that Mercury team really went through it this year. That's like three horrible situations with the owner, two of your players, technically three of your players, one being, basically, a prisoner. It's been insane. So I really feel for them for sure. The season's over and they're still getting bad news, like it's crazy for them. So yeah, the one thing I find encouraging, because a lot of people seem to be discouraged today, the one thing I find encouraging is the entire like NBA, WNBA community seems to all agree this is not enough. And it's just, I don't know if that'll mean anything, but that gives me some hope. Okay, we're all kind of on the same page here. Like, this is nowhere
Yeah.
near enough. And we'll see if the players do anything, if fans find some way to kind of stand up and do something. It's up to us to hold them accountable, right? If we push more, we can get more versus, there's a reason they did this in the offseason, like 30 days before, NBA preseason, and just kind of, it felt like it was kind of being buried doing it now, because obviously they don't want to talk about this. And right now it's harder to get players' opinions because they're all, doing their own thing because they're not on the clock, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. Well put. Well put. And I want to make sure that I don't know if I walk it back, but like add more context. I was just saying more as the racism part of it that I don't feel like it's the same. Like I don't feel
Right.
like I can, based on what they're saying, say that Sarver's a racist versus like Donald Sterling, I think it's very clear that
Yeah.
the way that from the audio and the way that he was using the word, it's derogatory regardless and insensitive regardless.
Yeah.
I agree though that it's as severe. So I was like in totality. I was just kind of breaking down that since that's like
Sure.
some insight I can provide at least as a black man from my perspective, right? But I want to make sure that people understand how like when we just talk about like the that some of the sexist things that he was doing. I want to go through some of these things and talk about it. So, or like go down the list and just kind of say some of these things because this is not just like, oh, he made like a crude joke that made a woman feel uncomfortable. There's a lot here. He
Hmm.
berated a female employee in front of others and commented that women cry too much. He arranged an all female lunch so that the female employees in Western Alliance Bank, where at the time he was the CEO, could explain to female Sun's employees how to handle his demands. Like he needed someone to translate for him for because women are apparently they're I can't even go. Sorry, I'm getting frustrated just thinking about it.
I understand.
He commented and made jokes frequently to employees in large and small settings about sex and sex related anatomy. In and of itself, right there, there's like that's like the first page of any like HR book, right? When you go to a new
Hmm.
job, it's like don't talk about things that are inappropriate for work. And it says he made crude, inappropriate comments about the physical appearance and bodies of women employees and other women. And on 4 occasions, he engaged in workplace inappropriate physical conduct toward male employees. What that means, I don't even. I assume I just apply the same, logic to with the the any story that we've heard about misconduct towards people, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then like they even go so far to say that like over 50 current and former employees reported the server engaged in demeaning and harsh treatment to employees, yelling and cursing them out. So there's not just like sexism. There sounds like workplace abuse, and you find that a lot in um, places where like with owners and with people who there's not anybody they have to answer to, you know,
Hmm.
where that they're the Kanye West and stuff like that who are just like what I mean, where they're like
Yeah.
no it's got to be this way, like no if you do this like the owners of businesses, the kind of like they're kind of cynical almost because it's
Yeah.
like they did whatever they did to get there and they feel entitled and because you're working for them they feel like they can say whatever. So I just want to
Right.
make sure that I say that, so I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to minimize the sexism and the just like abuse that
Right.
it's that he was doing to his employees. So I just want to make sure I that I explain that thoroughly because
Yeah. No.
that
No. I got you. I got you.
everyone over here throwing me under the bus. He's like, I do think it is as serious. No,
I'm gonna be like Josiah when he lets Gilbert just talk, and I'm like,
yeah, yeah. No, I just want to make to
no, no,
be
no,
very
no. Yeah, I
clear.
understand. You were talking about one specific part of many parts, and
Yeah, yeah.
like you said, when you add it all up, you come to the same agreement. You were just talking about one specific part of that
Yeah,
versus
yeah. I mean,
the
I even
Donald
made a
Sterling one.
joke about implying racism because let's be honest, it probably implies that he is racist, but I don't
Sure.
like to make that assumption off of,
Right.
you know, I'm sure he's definitely culturally insensitive. Like that by himself usually gives you some insight into that type of person's mindset. If you can't even comprehend why that word is offensive to use, you probably don't have much empathy to the plight of people who are affected by racism. I
Right.
mean,
Exactly.
so that
So we'll see what
that
happens. We'll see if there's more to the story. I'm sure there'll be more about what was released, but it's going to be interesting. And yeah, we were, on Lakers Twitter, we were talking a lot about what would you ask Russ and what would you ask LeBron and what would you ask Pet Bev. I think if we start a thread on what we're going to ask Adam Silver today, it would be pretty rough
yeah,
on
yeah,
this ruling. So we'll see when he talks about it. That you'll have to. I mean, he can run for another month, but eventually people are going to start, getting a hat. He has to do the rounds to at least promote the game. So we'll see because I was actually really kind of proud of him when he did the Donald Sterling ones. I'm like, wow, he was really strong, right?
That
And
was
this
like
feels like,
that was like where he earned all the respect from everyone, because he hadn't been faced with any situation like that yet. I
9 months in
remember
the job.
specific.
Yeah, it was like 9 months into the job, and we're like, hey, who is this guy, and how's he gonna do? And it was like his, like you said, his first real test of like,
Kind of
how are
awkward
you gonna?
looking, a little bit kind
Yeah,
of goofy
yeah,
looking dude, kind of quiet. Like for such an important position, he doesn't really command a room, right? He doesn't
yeah.
have that like,
He looks like the tall guy who saw, in a pickup game. You're like, man, this guy, like, he's gonna get
yeah,
bullied
yeah,
by anybody.
uncoordinated, exactly, uncoordinated. But he
He was
he
strong
showed
that
some
day for
strength
sure.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, I was shocked because at the time I kind of felt like we're not going to get anything real. It's going to be one of those like, give some money to charity, kind of like what this was. Yeah, give some money to charity and like be done with it. But then he's like lifetime ban. I'm like, oh snap, this guy is a boss. He's not playing around. And this time, less of that. I don't think anyone thinks, oh man, uh, Adam Silver, he's so strong. You don't mess with that guy. It's like, it was like, we'll
yeah.
see.
Like
So I'll be definitely
Donald
curious to see
Sterling
what he
was gonna
does.
bully him. Like you would have thought maybe Donald Sterling would have bullied him. But let's be honest. I don't think Donald Sterling was like upset that he couldn't go to basketball games. I don't think he was watching much basketball at all. Because
Well, he owns
isn't
the
he,
Clippers, so I don't blame him. But
yeah, it's not much inspiring basketball, but you know what? That reflects leadership, right? So he's
yeah,
probably the
that's true.
reason why, because they're a lot better since they left. Even the
And there's a lot of stories about him and how he treated those players too. Corey McGady's got some stories about what it was like. They had to sometimes like practice in the high school gym and change there and stuff. Like, yeah, it was a mess with the Clippers. I'm not a Clipper fan, as you can imagine. Got the Lake Show hat on. But
yes,
but
sir.
Ballmer's a good dude, and he's doing a good job with them. And as much as that doesn't make me happy, uh, you know, he's a cool, funny guy. But he's
Yeah,
definitely not problematic, at least from everything we've heard about him
yeah,
and
yeah.
seen
He
about him.
seems like a very like kind of interesting, weird, like I use this word a lot, mercurial, right? Kind of guy, but he doesn't seem like a bad person, like a mean
I don't
spirited.
stand. Yeah, I don't stand billionaires, but he feels like one who became a billionaire because of the web, and he's just like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Let's have
yeah,
fun, like let's have fun.
yeah.
And he's more like that than like I'm a genius and like I
Yeah.
kill myself for these billions and you're gonna kill yourself for the thousands I give you from the he
Yeah,
gives me a different vibe, and I think that has a lot to do with how he got his money versus some people who maybe got their money by cutting throats and like buying up properties and what have you.
that's a great
That's the
point.
vibe he gives me. He's like a fun guy who's just like almost like he won the lotto. He's like, this is
So,
awesome. Like,
yeah, like if it was any other team besides the Clippers, I probably would be a fan.
yes, yes.
If it was any other team besides that. But I'm fortunate, that my team has the best owner in sports.
Yeah, Genie. Shout out to Genie.
Shout out to Genie. Um, but yeah, I think that we covered that pretty well. It's a very serious subject, and there lots of nuance, and I'm sure we could spend the whole entire time on that. But you know what?
Yeah.
Here at Petty in the Post, we do like to have some, positivity, and enjoyment here. So we're gonna move on to the next subject, which is the release of NBA 2K23.
Let's go.
Let's go. Our this year's cover athlete is Devin Booker. Because of that, there's no double teams in the entire game. No, I'm kidding. uh, no, but he's the cover athlete. I really appreciate the detail that they put into it in regards to him and his, that story about the shoes. Like, he writes on all his shoes, be legendary on the cover. He's got those exact shoes on, those player edition shoes where he has the be legendary on the shoe. Which is like, as a Laker fan, I always have a soft spot for that, and it's like, to me, I think I always like appreciate players who have had a relationship with a past player that passed away, like Kobe, because you kind of get to, and like it's like when we hear Pow talk and tell stories, you kind of get to like a piece of that person still lives on, through them. So it
Hmm.
was really cool that when I was playing, playing the game, there's like a storyline where you have to like play him on one, and he gives you the shoes. That's pretty cool. So, I so far I'm liking it. I think we had discussed on it that you hadn't got a chance to play it yet, but you're gonna ask me some questions on the subject.
Yeah, so I haven't played the newest version of NBA 2K. Pretty much when I was a kid, growing up in high school, it was I was coming up during the live 2K era, so it's really interesting because live was still kind of a dominant force, and then it became like 50-50. And
Yeah.
then obviously 2K ran away with it. Live hasn't even made a game since the newest generation of console. It's been like a couple years. Ever since Embiid was
Yeah.
on the cover, they just gave up.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I think the year
but
right before that was like Lillard, right? It was Damian Lillard and
yeah,
then him.
yeah. So I haven't played the latest version, but I always pick it up. I usually wait a little bit. I'm just not as eager to buy it day one necessarily. I
Mm,
usually wait, a month or so, probably before the season starts. So I'll pick it
mm.
up soon. But yes, I have some questions. One, um, how do you feel it plays, especially now that we're kind of in gaming, officially in the new generation? It's been a couple years now. How do you feel this one matches up to like the previous PS5 iteration?
Got it. So I just as a little back uh, information for people who are listening, I have an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5, and I played the last game on next gen as well. And then the previous year I played it on last gen, obviously because there wasn't a next gen yet. And from my experience, this has like probably been the best 2K in maybe the last 4 or 5 years, in my opinion. The gameplay is fluid. One thing that is more about the console being next gen than it is the game is like loading times, because historically like NBA 2K loading times are terrible. It is like loading forever, and that was one thing that like I noticed, and even that was even so much last year too, but like especially this year that there's um that the loading times are lower. They're also fixed. One thing is that the last year they in the next gen they incorporated a city, where you had different parts of the city that things were, and the city was so big, and you had like the skateboard, but it was like you were having to travel so far across to do anything. You didn't really want to do any of the like side missions or anything like that. And at the end of the day, we want to play, just play basketball anyway. So one thing they did is like stuff's a lot closer, and so when you're like going to do a side mission or having to go to another part of town, a lot of stuff's really close to your apartment or your home base on that with the story mode. I actually really like the story too.
Cool, cool. The other thing is, for me, how do you feel like the My Player and those aspects are working in this version versus previous one?
My player, I so the best thing about this my player versus last year is if you remember they had the story like where he was like it started out and then he was on the like boat right in New York,
Hmm.
and the I can't think of his name, the actor who passed away from The Wire. Um,
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I forgot his name as well.
yeah, but
Yeah.
he they had that relationship with him, and they really invested in like paying an actor and kind of really trying to like do an actual storyline. It didn't really work that well, because they made you like start out in high school, and then you had to play college games, and then you were finally made it to the NBA, right? And like the
Michael K.
grind.
Williams, I think, was the name. Yeah, Michael K. Williams.
Yeah, Michael Hill Williams, yeah, great actor, rest in peace, man. And the last one that they made the badge grind really difficult, but made it easy to get VC. This one, the badge grind is a lot easier, but getting VC is more difficult. And to me, I think that's a better trade off because
Okay.
badges affect the my career a lot more, I think, than anything. And you can always at least if you want to pay to get some VC and level your character up, you can do that, but you can't pay to get badges. So
Right. Yeah, for me, that was the one thing. I'm weird. Like the way I like to play 2K, I just like to play the actual like play the season, and
yeah,
it's straight up. I do love the stories. The stories are always interesting, even the bad ones I like. I'm like, it's still interesting seeing
yeah,
the angle you
me
take,
too.
and that's my biggest beef is like, well, when I do the story, my guy's a bum, and like I don't want to pay for VC, so I'm struggling. So the fact this was a little bit easier makes it better. Because yeah, I definitely think that's the most interesting thing. Why are we doing this show? It's because we love basketball and we love the culture around it. And 2K
Yes,
understands that when they do it well. They understand that, hey, it's not just about that. It's about, people, making their dreams come true. It's about them being more than athletes and relationships they have with these sneaker deals. And maybe they have a love interest and maybe they have family stuff going on. And that makes you more connected. And then you see their rise. So that's all part of it, I think, when it's done well. When it's not as good, you're a little more frustrated. It's taking you away from the experience. All right. So, let me think. What other questions do I have for you? What version did you buy? Did you go all out? Do you get like the most expensive Jordan one? Do you get the base one? Do you get something in the middle? What's your go-to for these kind of versions?
For this one, I always like to get the just base regular version of it. That's like maybe I think the $20 where it's like $20 more or something like that.
Hmm.
Where you get like a little bit of VC, but I I think I went all out. Like when the last couple years I went like I was really getting into it, and I bought
Yeah,
last year I bought the like the Kobe edition,
legendary. Yeah,
right? Yeah, the Kobe edition, and they let me down. You'd think that the Kobe, the one where there's Kobe on the cover, that they would like really step up, but I felt like a lot of people, myself included, were disappointed in the replay value of that game because of how hard it was to level up your character, get those badges. They innovated. One thing I will say is they innovated the badge system so that to make players more realistic, and a balance. Because like previously, it was like very RPG like, where it was like you had a class, right? You were they because it is an RPG, right? It's
right.
a center, power forward, and they have different attributes and limits to what they can do. If you make a center, if he needs to be at least this height to activate these specific moves to be able you can buy these certain moves or certain badges, right? And now just like the NBA, the NBA has evolved where there's players who are centers where they can shoot, right? Like just
Right.
because you're a center doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to shoot, right? Or if you're a stretch four or like a two-way guard, like there's a combo guards. Is there even really a point guard anymore, right? It's more like
Hmm.
shooting guards that can dribble, right?
Right.
um, so I think that they set the precedent with that last one, and this one is like where it really came into its own because of what I was telling you about with the advancements with the badges and whatnot. So it's a lot better. I actually loved the creating a character on the last one, and I raved about it when it first came out. But as I played it longer and longer, and it became difficult to kind of like get your character to where you wanted it to be through the badges, I came to dislike it more. So I took an L there.
Cool. Yeah, normally I get the standard one as well. Every now and then I get the kind of more deluxe edition. I did the last time I got one was I think 2016 when they had
Mm.
Kobe on before when the year he retired. They had his hand up and all that. I still that's the only one I still kept to. Sometimes I either trade them in or like they just get lost with moving stuff and stuff. But that one I've always kept, and obviously now we'll just passing. I'm like, yeah, that one's never leaving my collection for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was one for me. Let me see.
We're
What's your favorite non Lakers team to play?
um the Grizzlies.
Oh, okay.
I like to play the Grizzlies. I mainly play my player, so I made two characters. So one thing that's cool this year is made my main character the one that I spent my VC on.
Hmm.
He's a sharpshooter. So the comps, when you make your character, they give you the
Yeah.
comps of like what famous player is this like. I got it like Kenny the Jet. Uh,
Okay. Nice.
yeah, Kenny Smith. So I got him as my comp, and then they also have now where you can like if you do very specific attributes that you can like get a famous build like that. You can do a Kobe Bryant build, and it's called the Mamba build, and it's actually called Mamba, and it says that you have like Kobe as your as your like comp, and it's really cool because they're doing that for all the legendary people. People are still like finding out. Oh, if I do it this way, then it'll be like Hakeem, or like if I pick the right number and stuff like that. So that's been really cool about this one. Um, while we're talking about 2K, I want to make sure that we bring our super producer, hiding in the shadows, pulling the strings, on Dalton, because he also has played 2K, and I want him to share some of his thoughts about what he thinks, just starting out this last week.
So far, so good. I mean, I like it. I don't know what much more to say that you haven't hit. It feels better than it's felt before. Um, I like the concept that they introduced of player rebirth, where you get to create a new player that starts out as a 90 overall. You get 25 badge points, and all of your quests carry over, so you don't have to start from the beginning. You can start at least, a lot of headway. That's a lot of progress made, and so I think that's a neat concept. And so far so good. I have no complaints. I still don't care for the big city thing. I still don't care. I mean, I get the side missions, but I still don't care for the rap career and then the fashion thing. I get some people do, but it's not my thing. I just hop on to play 2K online with you guys, hit up the rack in the park and all of that. And
Dalton, what's your favorite team to play besides the Sixers?
Honestly, I don't know, because I haven't played a non-Sixers team in so long. I only ever use the Sixers.
Yeah.
Who do you like beating when you're the Sixers? Who's your favorite team to blow out? You'd be like, yeah, we got them.
It's tough. I want to right off the top of my head, I want to say the Hawks. I don't like the Hawks, so that's a lot of fun for me. I love getting a mismatch, because I made a power forward build, and so I a little bit inside finishing, a lot of shooting, stuff like that, and I love getting that mismatch on Trae Young, switching in the post, and it's like, okay, all right, that was easy, free points.
Love that. Yeah, me breaking the all-time 3-point record against the Celtics was special for me. I dropped 19 threes. But seriously, my guy is like a legit. One thing is, like, people have really kind of dragged the shooting in this one, but to me, I've been terrible historically at shooting. Dalton knows from the rec, from playing with me in the rec. I've never been like a solid shooter, and for me, I think it's the best that the shooting's ever been, because it has a very on the meter. It has a very definite spot. Like, hey, if you get it to touch this area, then it's you'll make the shot. And if you don't touch it, then it's not. Before, it was so hot and cold. Sometimes badges activated. Sometimes you get it to the end and it still wouldn't. And they didn't show you exactly the point was. It just had the end of the meter. And so for me, that having it like a more defined, hey, this is what makes you green the shot and make the shot. It's, to me, that being more straightforward made me a better shooter in the game. So I like that change.
I agree with you. I feel like I'm greening more shots than I ever have before. And so to me, just, I don't know, something feels different, but it feels right. I had another thought I was going to bring up, but I completely entirely forgot.
I also like to, I was going to go back. I know you had mentioned two of you guys' points. I feel like what we were talking about is what makes 2K great. Like how Dalton's like, I don't like the fashion stuff and the rap career. I also don't like the rap career part for like, come on, like, there's like one good rapper and like 1.5 good rappers in the NBA right now, maybe like 3 ever that have ever been in the NBA that, like, I would listen to them, listen to their music. And it's like, come on, it's just like unnecessary. But the fashion is like a really big part of basketball. Like, that's kind of what the sneaker aspect of the fashion is, like, why we're doing what we're doing right now. It's like part of what I love. So I think that it's really cool that they incorporate it. And also, Dalton, the thing that makes it good is that you get clothing from it. So, like, you don't have to actually spend your VC on, like, to make your guy look fresh. You can actually just, like, do missions, like, in the fashion industry and get clothing. So I think that's cool.
I just like to make my player look ridiculous and then go from there. Put a snorkel on and some flip-flops, because you can do that this year, and then hit up the park. And that's about it. No, but I do agree with you. I mean, you can't really separate basketball from rap and fashion. It's neat. It's neat getting to play that 3-on-3 game with J. Cole in a game and seeing him throw down a dunk on somebody. Some of the missions are just kind of like, I don't want to do this. Like, you're having to freestyle and pick your lines and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm picking the first one over and over and over again just to get through the mission. And then apparently I failed it. And it's like, okay, well, I didn't want to do this anyways. Just give me the shoes or the VC. Come on.
Give me that should have been your rap line right there. Give me the shoes and the VC. That would have been hot. No, but I definitely I definitely agree. I think they're just so synonymous, and like that's why I was like, when I was like thinking about what can we add to this space, right? for podcasts, because there's a bajillion podcasts, right? And web shows and stuff out there. And I was like, there's really not anybody who's kind of combining those things. And ironically, this is like the one day we're not talking about sneakers. But I just, they're so synonymous. You're not gonna go like LeBron debuted his son's debuted his shoes. Like, that's part of the culture, part of basketball.
All
People,
right, Petty.
yeah,
I have a question here. Sorry for cutting you off, but
yeah, no, go ahead.
like in actuality, in real life, if you had to pick a brand to rock with, and you could either get Nike, Adidas, Puma, Under Armour, one of those, and let's say the indier brands like Puma and Adidas give you a little bit more money, who would you go with?
I'm still going with Nike, just because
Okay.
I'm going Nike because, one, I can wear Jordans. And actually Jordan and Nike are kind of separate too. So you could,
Yeah.
but I would go with Nike just because you have that Jordan branch and that Nike branch that you can like wear, like you can wear those shoes. And I to me that expression is the most important part to me, because like a lot of like Puma, and then I don't really relate to like any of those brands because I didn't wear them growing up, except for maybe Adidas a bit. But like I also wasn't like, you were never like felt fresh in Adidas. That was my issue like growing up, is I never felt like some of the Adidas that were out when I was a kid, outside of like the shell toes, were really like shoes that I wanted to wear.
Right.
So for me, it would definitely be Nike, because I would have like free reign to go back to wear like old Nikes that I liked, and they've killed it since the 80s. So there's so much that you can do there. So what about you?
I think part of me wants to zag and do Puma, but I feel like even like if I was a superstar, just be like, man, I should be on Nike. So I think I'd probably pick Nike too. But maybe if this percentages are right, I could be a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
But it would be tough to say no to Nike for sure.
It would also depend on like what my career was too, right? Because like
Yeah.
if I'm a superstar, I'm gonna go Nike. If I'm like a guy who has a lot of buzz coming into the league, I might go Nike. But if I'm a guy who's kind of like, I have a large following, so some of the smaller brands are interested in me and they're gonna give me a big bag. That's what happened with a lot of Kyle Kuzma and stuff like that. He's not a superstar, but him being in LA, he has I think he had more followers than Anthony Davis until Anthony Davis came to
Right.
LA. So that kind of gives you some insight. Like, it's not always just about being like a superstar. It also depends on your marketability. So I think it
Sure.
just that really would be a factor for me, is like, because if I'm making like 3 times as much being Puma, man, hand them Pumas over here. I'm gonna make them fresh.
The kangaroos are not that bad. I mean, you can't wear them on the court, but
And that's no disrespect to them, but like
yeah.
the thing that Nike gets that I feel like a lot of the other brands don't, or they're finally catching up to, is like, big part of like selling a sneaker to me is like the storytelling. And I
Right.
have history with Nikes. Like, there's iconic moments of people wearing Nikes. Kanye West having his own shoe, wearing them at the VMAs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these stories, and then when I get that shoe, it reminds me of that moment, or that story that they told me. Oh, these were the shoes that Jordan wore in his last game versus Kobe, right? They're gonna sell they're gonna show you the picture of it and sell you on the idea of like that this shoe has history behind it. And I think that's what separates the Nike from these other brands, is like, there's not those moments. Like, tell me some iconic moments from like people wearing Pumas.
I think there's some track people who wear Pumas. That's probably the
Yeah.
most I have. They have some iconic shoes, but they're kind of like the more casual lifestyle
No,
shoes, right?
definitely. I'm not saying, like I said, each of the brands has a shoe that is like
Yeah.
iconic, right? The Clyde, right? For
Yeah.
Puma. That has history behind it. But like, there's not like there's not that like, someone winning a championship, shooting a game-winning shot over it. There's not that history that Nike has built up.
Right.
And it's kind of like the Lakers. They're like the Lakers of like sneakers. They've had all the
Yeah.
greatest. Like, they have Tiger Woods, they have LeBron James, they have like Michael Jordan, they've had Kobe Bryant, and they all have their own legacy as like leaving their imprint on the brand and on society. And it's like, you don't
Yeah.
have that with any of these other brands. So
Yeah, no, that's right.
Not to we're over here like pooping. I don't mean to to do that, but that's just my opinion. Well, at least we have some sneaker talk, right?
There you go.
To
Yeah, we did.
to
We got it
include.
in there.
We are gonna move on to our final aspect. All three of us are gonna be talking about this one. Um, is the God of War Ragnarok trailer came out today. Uh, PlayStation did their state of play and they revealed a bunch of games. I found out like today that Edwin is a gamer, and that
Yeah,
he has family ties in the industry,
that's
um,
right.
which is a small world. So it's cool that we have something else that we relate on. So I want to know, Edwin, how excited are you about God of War, and what did you think about the trailer?
I'm very excited about God of War. For those who are not into games as much or don't know, basically, even though games have changed a lot, it's still kind of the same thing where, in movies it's the summer blockbuster. In games, it's like the
Mhm.
holiday game. And even though,
Yeah,
again, we've become more global and like game 24/7, just like movies 24/7, it's still kind of true that it works that way.
yeah,
And that's what happens now. This is the time where the big games come out, the one that everyone's going to want during, October, November, December, going into January. And the game for Sony this year is God of War.
mm,
And as Petty mentions, we already knew about this game. We knew about the release coming up and everything. But today we got a kind of 2-3 minute trailer that really brought the hype for a game that already has it's a historic IP, lots of games. But this is like the sequel to a kind of a reboot they did a few years back. That game was Game of
yeah,
the Year, and this one's going to be probably right up there. And the hype levels were amazing. And today, one of the best trailers I've ever seen came out for this game. So pretty
yeah.
much everyone's really excited about it. That's why we're talking about it here on the Petting the Post web show.
Absolutely. I'm gonna push back though on Game of the Year. It's probably gonna be top three, but there's no
But
way.
Elden Ring, yes,
Elden Ring's gonna be Game of the Year. There's no
it'll
way.
be a nom. It'll be this will be nominated because Elden
No,
Ring just was
definitely,
so good that yeah,
definitely, but there's no way. Like this, it's impossible. If Elden Ring doesn't win it, it would be like I'd be heartstruck because of the way that it brought new people into that type of game that I've
yeah,
never ever played a Souls game. I have played them, but I didn't enjoy
yeah, like
it.
30 minutes and you're like, all right, I'm out of
Yeah,
here.
this was the first one that I played where I got destroyed by like a dragon boss, and I'm like, okay, let's go back in there. Like that was awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, I'm the hype is like at a fever pitch. I'm like such a big fan. I don't really like. I'm really deep into the gaming news. Like I follow it like very deeply, but like as far as like developer names and all that stuff, I don't know a lot of them. But like I remember playing that first one and realizing like, dude, this Corey Balrog, like when I listened
Yeah,
to his
Barlow,
interviews, yeah, sorry, yeah,
I got you.
Barlog, yeah,
Barlog, yeah, Barlog.
yeah. He the way that he tells the stories like very in a very personal way about like
Hmm.
about how important the relationships are, and it really shines through in the storytelling for the game. So I'm extremely excited about it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull it up right now. For those who maybe are like, oh, I'm not really interested, I don't really know. There's a documentary on the making of the reboot on YouTube.
So
And
good.
I recommend just watching that. It's like an hour long where he talks about progressing this character from just being like this god to being a father who is trying to raise a child and be a little bit more in touch with that. It's called Raising Kratos.
Yeah.
It's an hour. It's almost 2 hours long. It's fantastic, and I think even if you don't like games or you're not as interested, watch the documentary. You'll probably understand a lot more what makes this game special. And it's a fantastic documentary. So it's on YouTube, Raising Kratos. Check it out. And if you want to check out the trailer and see what's going on with the game, go ahead on Sony's YouTube channel. They have the trailer up there. And yeah, I think we're all excited to try it out and see if it's as good as the trailer looks, because we're all pretty sure it is, because we played the last game.
Exactly. Dalton, what are your thoughts on it on the trailer today and in your hype around the game?
I'm excited. I think it looks awesome because I actually just finished playing it. Uh, they released the PC port earlier this year, and I had been meaning to get around to playing that for a long time. I just finished it. I started my New Game Plus playthrough, so I mean, and pretty much immediately started my New Game Plus playthrough. I couldn't get enough of that game. I did just about
Awesome.
everything except fight the Valkyries, and so I'm excited. I don't know. The only unfortunate part is that I don't have a PlayStation 5 right now, so I might have to just go out and buy one just for this. And that definitely, this game is one of those games that'll make me do that. But
Yeah.
I'm excited. I love the Norse mythology in it. I don't know, and it's such a fantastic story. I'm a huge God of War fan. I still have my God of War PSP, my God of War Edition PSP.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Chain of
wow.
Olympus. Yeah.
Yeah, Chain of Olympus, and so I'm all in and I'm ready for it. And
Yeah, it's crazy. I never played any of the old ones at all. Like I think when I was a kid, I went over to my friend's house and she had the game and we played. It was more of like a over the head kind of like like button masher type thing.
Yeah, it was a button masher.
And
Yep.
and I remember it like a little bit, but I remember when I saw this reboot and there's just something. It's like when I saw the Dark Knight trailer the first time, you
Mm-hmm.
just know this movie is going to be good. Like there's certain trailers that when I saw the Inception trailer, I was like this movie's going to be good. Like I know
Yeah.
I have a level of confidence that I've never had about, you know, a movie about this one, like just the premise and everything that they set up. And that's how I felt about the reboot, and that's why I played it. And I'm big on storytelling. To me, like storytelling is extremely important in games, and it's a special medium. And for games, is a special medium because it's a combination of like film and media, the voice acting, there's music, and all those
Mm-hmm.
things are forms of art, along with it being an experience. Like just like when you go to a concert, right? You experience the artist performing for you, and that's what makes games unique to any other platform. So I'm excited about that aspect of it more than anything. I just like the story.
I think
Yeah.
that what you just said is all the more reason to go watch that Reason Kratos documentary, because you get to see Christopher Judge and I don't know who plays.
You mean boy? Who plays boy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
who
The
plays
guy
Boy,
who play. Yeah.
but you get to see them doing some mocap. You get to see them, doing their thing, and it's a really interesting watch. And
Yep.
I mean, that is definitely something that made this game so much cooler. Was the story definitely shifted, the dynamic of everything shifted, and it worked. It doesn't always necessarily work when you try and reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
That's true, and I think too the backstory for Kratos makes it so much unique because it's just like as the writer is trying to escape those tropes, so is the character trying to escape that history. And that's to me what
Mm-hmm.
made it kind of special because I'm not into those games, the gory games where it's like
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff that was happening in those games. That's not me. I'm not into it. And him like trying to like escape that history and that past and remove those sins and try and like leave that life behind and being forced back into it or being forced to like to defend his son. I think that's what makes it so unique in comparison to a lot of those games where they're trying to maybe reinvent the wheel, right? When they try to come out with a new Gears trilogy and they have the main character as like Marcus Phoenix's son, and he's just not interesting. He's just not interesting at all. It's just like very run of the mill. So it's like I think that's kind of what makes it special. And I'll close this out now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Petty and the Post web show podcast. We're available now on Spotify, Google, and we're waiting to hear back from Apple. We're waiting to hear back from Apple. I've heard that it lags a little bit, so that should be
Mm-hmm.
coming soon. We're gonna be trying to get you guys new episodes each week. Try and get them done early in the week so they can be out on Thursday, Friday. This should come out on Thursday. Hopefully, they won't get any new bombshells between now and then. But yeah, it's your host, Darian Woods, aka the pettiest Laker fan at the pettiest LA. That's a lot. Edwin Garcia, E creates 88, and then we have Dalton, our fearless leader, pulling the strings in the background. And you guys have a great day. Take care.
All eyes on me. Coming out the lead, and you know it's ID. Ice white shit, then we on the